So for example, if I'm going to throw a dart,
Yep.
I'd move like that as I put that down on the club, take my grip, and now you can see my trail elbow's facing a little bit more towards my right hip. And then as I start to rotate back, the face naturally falls into a better position and the arm is able to fall into a better position at the top. Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I was lucky enough to have Kerrod Gray from Australia fly over to the UK and shoot some content with me. And in this video, we was discussing a little bit around how the trail arm should be sitting at address and how it can really help you shallow out your golf swing. So let's get into it.
All right, Jay, so what we're looking at here is we're looking at a gentleman who gave a recent online lesson to, and he was struggling with low hooks, you said?
Yep, low left ones.
Low left ones, right? And we know that the ball is influenced greatly by what the club face is doing. And over here on the left-hand side, this is the before swing of this gentleman. We can really see that the club face is pointing in this downward direction, considerably more than even we've got some old footage of Tiger over here, how it's let's say pointing a little bit more horizontal with the ground. Essentially, if you look at the toe of the golf club, the toe of this gentleman's golf club is facing way too more out towards the face-on position rather than more up towards the sky. Now, it's within reason. It's not rotating and pancaking open, but essentially we can see a big visual difference between the two that we've got here on the left and the right. Now, from this, extending over on the left-hand side, as this player goes up, you can see that the shaft plane is quite steep, right?
Yep.
Then as the player on the right-hand side, Tiger, gets it back, the angle of the shaft tends to be a little bit flatter, and then this translates all the way to the top of the swing, in which we then want to talk about the angle of the shaft there at the top of the swing. But specifically, more so with this lesson, you're working a lot on what the trail arm was doing, but not necessarily in the swing. It was more about an adjustment in the setup, isn't it? So with these two images here, we can see a distinct difference between the left and the right. We'll call this one on the left maybe a little across the line, right?
Yep.
And then Tiger, let's just call that a very orthodox position. From this position here, right, obviously we know that it's a lot easier to get the job done on the way down, but I want you to talk to me a little bit about the effect of the setup position, the trail arm, specifically with this gentleman here, and then what you sort of identified was the key reason that he was getting this club quite steep and closed and then across the line relative to where we would like to see for the length of his swing, and just detail the differences in the setup and then the movement going back from there. So talk to me about setup first.
Okay, cool. So the first thing I'd say is his trail arm was rotated too much to the left, so too much internal, okay?
Yeah, we can see that, like the inside of the elbow crease, right, it's facing a lot more down towards the target line. Now, we saw on the video there, mainly from the down the line, was the effect of part of this, and I want you to then talk and continue about when we do get our elbow crease facing more towards the target, how that influences the movement of the trail arm.
Absolutely. So when this trail arm faces a lot more round to the left, what we can see is in the backswing, players tend to get that trail elbow starting to break down, separating from the left.
Yeah,
and when we do that and we keep that trail arm more on top of the club, we can see how the club face can stay more closed, and from there the shaft can be picked up in the air.
Absolutely. So go back to the address position again. So just from the face-on view, these guys will be able to see, as a general point of reference, right, the elbow crease, if you just play dead with this trail arm here, hangs on about approximately, let's say, a 45-degree angle.
Yep.
Right? So from there, the hand tends to hang on a slightly different angle, doesn't it?
Yep.
It tends to kind of hang a little bit more internal towards the target there. If you just swing your hand onto the golf club and get yourself set up. Now, this gentleman was very much in this direction, okay? And we see a lot of the time that players, when they change their grip, they would also rotate the whole arm itself. Now, this gentleman may have been doing it based on a previous, let's say, movement pattern or flaw that he had in his golf swing, and he wanted to weaken that right hand off. And then by doing so, he's actually internally rotated, and he's actually encouraged a whole nother error to his golf swing, right? So when you set up to that ball for me, we identified that this here was the main cause of the problem, which resulted in manipulation of that club face, okay? So I want you to talk me through, once you're set up there, the effect of allowing this to be a little bit more open at address, or let's say externally rotated, or where the inside of the elbow crease would be facing more towards the camera. If you put two hands on, I want you to show me what happens as we move back into this club shaft parallel position.
That's it. So as I start rotating back, we can see now, because my arm is rotated a touch more to the right, that it's easier for my shoulder to rotate as well. And as I start making a movement back with my chest, I can see now the face stays a little more open from that. And just to add, I like to call this a dart thrower's arm.
Yep.
So for example, if I'm going to throw a dart,
Yep.
I'd move like that. As I put that down on the club, take my grip, and now you can see my trail elbows facing a little bit more towards my right hip. And then as I start to rotate back, the face naturally falls into a better position and the arm is able to fall into a better position at the top.
Yeah, perfect. So using this sort of takeaway reference with this gentleman, we can see that the club face itself had rotated a little bit more open by this stage. Now, the follow-on effect from that, get back to that position and then slowly keep continuing turning to the top, we can see that the angle of the shaft, more so than where he was before, and we just make this little adjustment with this trail arm, we go in that direction, bang, straight away, lightning rod, right? As you then continue to turn, we can see it gets across the line, and that was causing a lot of issues for this gentleman. But where you had him, if you go back to the club shaft parallel position, perfect, and then you were getting him to feel almost he was like maintaining this, right? So then
Absolutely.
as you continue to then swing slowly to the top and keep pivoting, without this trail elbow doing this lawnmowing action, which was really manipulating the face, now all of a sudden, for him, he called this that it was on plane. He felt like, oh, that's a more aesthetic golf swing that he sees with his favorite player.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So when you set up to it for me, talk to me about any other little adjustments or observations that you had with this gentleman to further compound sort of within his mentality of where he's at the moment, to give him the confirmation, right? And to be comfortable with applying this in his practice, and then maybe the exact drill and exercise and feel on top of just a changing and adjusting the setup.
Yeah, absolutely. So first thing we did was we identified, and I got him to set up in this position many times. Trail elbow facing back at his hip. I let him do this a couple of times.
Love that.
And then from there, I was quite comfortable with him just hitting a couple of three-quarter shots. So once he was in that position, he could then make a small swing.
Yeah, beautiful.
And then he could really feel as well, some of the feedback I got was he could really feel like his right shoulder was rotated more to the right in transition. Now, when he did that, for him, he really felt the face was miles open, which was a great feeling for him because then he felt like he could turn through it more and control the face rather than smother it and hit it left.
Yeah, essentially, and that was the whole reason that he came to you. Now, all these changes, we're doing it based on performance, just to not make it look more like Tiger, right? So then as I set up to this, and I kind of just run through that feeling myself, let's say I get my right elbow crease facing more towards the target. Straight away, we actually see a lot of cricketers get into this position when they start pulling the arms back as well. And we also notice that a lot of players who tend to pull the trail arm around their body, they also tend to separate the grip a little bit, don't they?
Seen that, yep.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that a little bit later on in another video. But when we're setting up to our golf ball, and for players to get this feeling, right? So the inside of the elbow crease is facing more out towards this camera. I love this whole dart throwing action that you gave him because that's really applicable straight at the address position for him to go, okay, that's a good checkpoint, right? Whereas a lot of players might go, oh, that's kind of right. But then if they're trying to throw a dart, well, they'll go, wow, I actually probably need to exaggerate it a little bit more. That's key. Another feeling that I get when I get into this position is not only do I now have the confidence based on what we've kind of talked about there, that this is going to set the club face better, allow this shaft to work a little bit shallower, keep the face more open than what this gentleman was, is that from this direction, as I go up and down the field, it actually feels softer as well. Now, we know one of the main causes for technique errors in the golf swing is tension, right? Especially from the word go. So if I'm in the address position, we get this player and we just simply go up and down a little bit with the arm. It feels nice and soft, right? Anything else that you gave this guy a recommendation from? Let's talk about practice, right? So you said hit some little half shots and he's getting the feeling that from the address, elbow crease was out, nice and soft. Little half is from here. How did you then put that together in a drill or exercise that he took away and he worked on?
Right, well, let me show you what I asked him to do.
Okay.
Some of the formatting that I like when I work with players is I'm quite into freezer drills, and this is completely not outcome related. I'm not really fussed about what the ball does.
Perfect.
So once we got into this position here, I would get him to go back into position, checkpoint it, check he's happy with it, head back down, and then just build some momentum and pitch one away. Once he's done 3 or 4 of those, I would then want him to work into 20% speed, so we have a continuous motion for him to feel.
Great.
Okay, so now he'd be doing exactly the same checkpoints at address, working back slowly, making sure he almost can't get it wrong, building up nicely.
Nice.
And then the third and final stage as I call it, we'll then be trying to put that into some form of full speed.
Wonderful. Beautiful.
And that's when he can be a little bit more outcome driven, going, oh, okay, I see a difference in flight there, or it's still going left, and then he can go back to drawing board.
And this is just to touch on it quickly, the importance of working a lot more on the process of what these players are doing, not focusing on the outcome specifically with the shots at the beginning stages of working on a drill or exercise. Because if they get so wound up on, oh, it's a little bit right of the target, it's a little bit left, well, essentially they're trying to achieve a perfect outcome, but they haven't learned the motor pattern in such a way that it's taken time to embed into their subconscious.
And some of the things I see from that as well is once a player starts to fall into that trap, they then start going, oh, that went a little bit right, let me try this, let me try that, and then all of a sudden they forget exactly what they were starting on.
Yeah, mate. So how many reps of each of those stages did you get them to do?
I like 3 to 5 to start.
Yep.
I like to start off heavier on the freezers, but yeah, eventually he will work in stages of 3 for sure.
Yeah, mate. Fantastic exercise, but it all starts from getting this trail elbow or this trail arm in check to make sure that it has such a follow-on effect throughout the entirety of the golf swing. How we set our arms at address is often overlooked by a lot of players. They get so obsessed about trying to manipulate the shaft in the 0.25 of a second that the club comes down. But sometimes just assessing where this player was setting up, you told him to video his golf swing regularly to make sure the feel was matching up with the reel. That's great coaching. Good stuff.
So I hope that video made perfect sense into how the trail arm at address can play a direct influence on how your arms move and how you can shallow out the golf swing. So if you liked the video and you like what I had to say, then please give it a like. And if you could subscribe to the channel, I know it'd really help. So thanks a lot, and I'll see you soon.